Alright, so this week's disorder we're talking about, like I said earlier, is insomnia. So let's start off by talking about what insomnia is. So, insomnia is the inability to fall asleep, stay asleep, or having non-restorative sleep. So whenever you sleep and you wake up and you feel very groggy, that's non-restorative sleep. You didn't get the rest that you needed, your body didn't get to regenerate in certain ways that it needed to. That can be destructive over time. So this is very common, especially here in America. It affects roughly 58% of the American population at one time or another. And that's pretty crazy. That's over half of Americans are all suffering from insomnia at some point. That's crazy to me. That's a lot of people. I didn't get an estimate or anything on the whole world, so I'm sorry that I don't have that statistic for you, but it is very common. Insomnia can also be a sign or symptom of another medical disorder such as diabetes, thyroid disorders, or other mental disorders such as anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression being the two big ones from the mental disorder cause. Insomnia can also be of two different classes. There's acute insomnia, and there's also chronic insomnia. And we're going to talk a little bit about what those are. So, acute insomnia is having a known, acute insomnia has a known triggering factor, and the insomnia will only last a month or less. It'll never last longer than that when it's acute. So, there's not really much else to go on with that. Basically, if you've experienced insomnia before, it hasn't lasted longer than a month, then you've had acute insomnia. So it's not a big problem. It's something that happens to everybody at some point in their lives for one reason or another. Now, chronic insomnia is insomnia that lasts longer than a month. And there are a few different classifications for chronic insomnia. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of them here. There's adjustment insomnia, which is where you have insomnia lasting longer than a month. You have known triggering factors. So, for instance, you had like a project or something that you were supposed to complete at work, and there's a deadline on it, and you've been stressing out about it because you've had a lot of other stuff to do in your life, and your team members aren't helping you out as much, and you've got to get this done, but you're not close to finishing it. You might be losing sleep. You might be having nightmares about it. This might last for a while. Now, say this deadline is next month, and you've already been working on it for 2 months. That's a very long deadline, but just for hypothesis sake here. Say all that's happening. If you are experiencing insomnia for the duration of that time, that's chronic insomnia with cause. So the chronic insomnia with cause would be adjustment insomnia. Now there's another one called psychophysiologic insomnia. Did I say that right? Psychophysiologic? Yes, psychophysiologic insomnia, where the sufferer is left with behaviors or habits that further perpetuate the insomnia. Now this one's pretty common, I think. At least it's one that I identify with really well. To me, this means that you've suffered with insomnia. While you're trying to cope with that insomnia, you did things to keep yourself occupied. So you couldn't sleep, so you read a book. You couldn't sleep, so you decided to play some video games or watch your favorite television program or watch some YouTube videos. That's behavior that you've adopted to help deal with your insomnia, but if you think about it, you get into the routine of doing it quite often, and you just do it every day. You've perpetuated your insomnia now because those are things that prevent you from falling asleep. So that's psychophysiologic insomnia. And the third type of chronic insomnia is paradoxical insomnia. And this is where the person may be sleeping a lot more than he or she thinks. So there's different facets of chronic insomnia to pay attention to. We talked about adjustment insomnia, psychophysiologic insomnia, and paradoxical insomnia. Those are the three types of chronic insomnia. Now, chronic insomnia can also be called primary versus secondary, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why that is. Primary insomnia cannot be traced back to a definitive cause. So you can have chronic insomnia that's been lasting quite a while. You don't have a definitive cause, so that means that it's not adjustment insomnia. It's not, it can still be psychophysiologic insomnia, and it still has a potential to be paradoxical. But because you can't figure out what the cause of it is, it can never be classified as adjustment insomnia. So like I said, primary cannot be traced back to a definitive cause. Secondary insomnia, on the other hand, when you have a direct cause, such as a medical or mental disorder. Big culprits, like I said earlier, with mental disorders are anxiety and depression, and you can imagine why that would cause some insomnia. When you're really depressed, you have trouble getting to sleep, your thoughts kind of run away with you, you feel bad, your quality of sleep is hindered. You always wake up seeming to feel tired and groggy, and you don't want to get out of bed. When you're really anxious, I mean, like you're kind of scared, and so that keeps you from sleeping because you're afraid you're going to have nightmares, or you're afraid you're going to have sleep paralysis, or you're afraid that you're going to wake up sporadically throughout the night, and you're going to end up waking up in the morning feeling terrible. These things can cause insomnia. So the secondary is whenever you can root it back. Like I said, you can link it back by tracing the cause. Now, all of these things can be combated, which I am pleased to announce to you guys, because this is not something that you can just, or that you just have to let beat you down. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things that we can do to maybe help with insomnia. If you yourself have insomnia, or you know somebody else that has it, you might be able to utilize some of this information. So the biggest thing that you can do to combat insomnia is by adopting good sleep hygiene. And what sleep hygiene is it's basically a name for the routine that you come up with for going to bed. If you don't have a routine before going to bed, think of coming up with one that suits you as an individual, because it really is going to aid with your quality of sleep, and it will help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep. So much insomnia that I've learned anyway is due to poor sleep hygiene. So we don't have these routines before bed. We just kind of go to bed when we can't stay awake anymore. You know, we surround ourselves with electronics all the time, and then we're just frustrated when we want to go to sleep because we want it to happen just like that. No, that's not how sleep works. It's a process. Good sleep hygiene is the most effective way, like I said, to combat insomnia. And some of these good habits for sleep hygiene include getting to bed around the same time each night. Now, this one is super important. It gives your body and mind a natural rhythm to help regulate itself. You might have heard of something like, I think it's called the circadian rhythm, but it's all to do with sleep and your sleep patterns. And that's if you've learned anything about psychology or just about people in general, the way that we think, the way that we think, the way we communicate, the way we do everything is based on patterns. And sleep is no different. If you can go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, your body's automatically, or your brain's automatically going to start making your body tired at about 9:30, because it knows, oh, this is about usually the time I go to bed, so let's start getting ready. That's your cue to stop doing what you're doing, to get ready for sleep, and start practicing your routine. Another thing that you could do is associate your bed only with sleep. Now, this one is something that I myself find very difficult to do. In this day and age, a lot of us do tons of stuff in our room, and not all of us have desks or anything like that. But if we're going to be doing things in our room, maybe we should think about getting a desk, or maybe doing stuff on the floor instead. The reason being is because whenever you associate your bed with these other things, your brain no longer makes the correlation of, oh, I need to sleep because I've laid down. So you want to avoid studying, avoid eating, working, doing anything like that on your bed, because your brain is going to associate it with all of those things instead when you're trying to go to sleep. Whereas if you just slept in your bed and didn't do anything else, well, you can have sex in your bed. Beds are for sleep and sex, as far as I'm concerned. It's healthy to keep it that way. So keep your work, keep your studying, keep your eating in either a different room or in a different part of that room. That way, whenever your head hits the pillow, your brain's automatically like, oh, it's time to sleep. I'm going to get ready to rest. And so it makes it easier for you to fall into that. Another thing that you could do to practice sleep or good sleep hygiene is turn off electronics 30 minutes before you go to sleep. I know this one's so hard for people. This one's hard for me too. I've actually, in this day and age, I've not met one person that is able to do this effectively every single night. Sometimes they get distracted, you know, there's stuff going on. But this one's really important too. The light from your devices, whether they be from your cell phone, your tablet, your television, anything like that, your eyes are going to take the light in and send signals to your brain, the same signals that they would send to your brain if you were observing sunlight. So what happens with sunlight? That means it's daytime. So your eyes are telling your brain when you're looking at these devices that it's daytime, and your brain knows that daytime is not the time for sleep. Daytime is time to be awake, so it's going to try to stay alert, it's going to try to remain active, and it's going to make it really hard for you to fall asleep and slow your thoughts. So turn those devices off before you go to bed, guys. 30 minutes. 30 minutes, it's not that tough. Another thing that you could do is you could engage in relaxing activities 30 minutes before bed. You just gave up one of those things that you like to do before bed, replace it with something that'll actually help you get to sleep. Some of these things might include writing in a journal. Writing in a journal is a great way to end your night. You can get the thoughts from your day out onto paper, and that means it's not going to be in your mind anymore, stressing you out. You can write poetry, you can write stories in your journal, you can write it whatever the heck you write in your journal. Writing is a very good way to get things off your chest and to relieve a lot of stress and express yourself, which can be very relaxing. Another thing that you could do to engage in a relaxing activity, maybe read a relaxing book that doesn't require you to retain too much information, so you're not having to try and remember different details and pieces of the story. And so that when you wake up tomorrow and you've forgotten it all, you won't have to worry about rereading either. You could also maybe light a candle. Drink some tea. I was talking about that earlier and helping relax with iMac and getting to sleep, and I think that that's a very effective means. I like to drink tea. Tea relaxes me. It calms my nerves, depending on the type of tea that I'm drinking. And candles have more or less the same effect too. If you turn off all the lights, light some candles, just something about the flickering of the flame and the light dancing off the walls, and it's a mellow light. It's not this light here. It's a very natural, soft light that's not going to get your brain really active, and it can be soothing and relaxing. So that's something that can help you get into. Those are some of the activities that you could engage in to relax before you sleep. You could also even meditate. I don't know how many people here meditate. I know Scissor Sister likes to meditate. Meditate your way into sleep. That's a great way to do it too. It's a great time. You got 30 minutes to do it before bed. And finally, the last thing that I've got on my list for things that you could do to practice sleep hygiene. Now, I want you guys to know that this is not the only things that you could do. You could do other things too, depending on your personality or what works for you. This is just some things that I've come up with here. So the last thing on my list is practice sleeping in a healthy position. And I think a lot of us have issues with this because we're comfortable in certain positions, but we may not be aware of the damage that it's doing to our body in the long run, or we may not be aware of how it's making us feel while we're asleep. Sleep on your back or side if you can. The reason for this is being when you're sleeping on your back, you can keep your spine straight, you can keep your posture in an upright position laying down. This means that the muscles in your back are going to get to relax, your lower back's going to get to relax, and then try to keep your legs slightly bent. Don't have them full on straight because you want to improve circulation, and whenever you have your legs slightly bent, it takes some of the pressure off of some of the muscles in like your glutes area, which actually makes your sleep quality improve a lot. When you sleep on your side, you're able to achieve a lot of this too, but it can cause problems as well, so I've heard. But I didn't do a lot of research into the repercussions of your sleeping positions, except for your stomach. Some of us do sleep on our stomachs because it helps with snoring, or it's just flat out comfortable. But when you sleep on your stomach, you're hindering your sleep process a lot. You're putting pressure on your chest cavity, which is then creating pressure on your organs, making it harder for you to breathe, and it decreases blood circulation. And then you have to turn your head sideways because you can't have it straight down. I mean, you can't breathe through the bed, you know. And so that creates strain on your neck muscles, and you might wake up having problems. Your lower back hurts, your neck hurts, because when you're laying on your stomach, it puts more pressure on your lower back as well. So these are all things to be aware of whenever you're going to sleep. And some people it's very uncomfortable to sleep on their back. It used to be very uncomfortable for me to sleep on my back. But then I started doing it. I just said, screw it, I'm just going to sleep on my back because I know this is the best way you're supposed to sleep. And eventually I got used to it, and now it's comfortable to me. But just kind of try and play around with what position works for you, but be very aware of your spinal alignment, be very aware of which muscles are being strained, and try to find a position that lets you be in the most relaxed state possible. This is going to improve your sleep quality a tremendous amount. So guys, in conclusion, I want to say that insomnia, I want to remind you guys, insomnia is the inability to fall or stay asleep, or having non-restorative sleep when you wake up, which means you're going to feel tired or groggy. There are two types of insomnia. Again, acute, which has a known triggering factor and lasts no longer than a month, and chronic insomnia, which lasts longer than a month. Chronic insomnia can also be called primary versus secondary, where primary insomnia cannot be traced back to a root cause, but secondary is where you have a direct cause such as a medical or mental disorder. We also learned several ways to exercise good sleep hygiene in order to beat our insomnia, and I hope that this has been very informative for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, I hope you enjoyed some of the information, and I hope that you're able to pass along some of this information to others as well. It's been a pleasure passing this on to you and doing some of the research so that we could talk about it today. But yeah, so that's what we got, guys. I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit about insomnia. I am going to be